Welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard A. the Cruz, who is not here today, and Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good afternoon.
It is Monday, July 24th, 2023. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Is it still called Twitter? Is it just called X? Is that the logo? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't go on the site. YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Gaming Discourse. Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. You can support us for $2, $4, $7, and $10 and get your name in the video credits. Early access to videos, access to our Discord server, and more. There will not be an episode of Gaming Discourse FM this week, I assume, because Richard is off.
Yeah.
Richard, if you're listening, or if there is an episode of Gaming Discourse FM, and I don't know yet.
There might be, because he contacted me about some recording equipment he wanted my opinion on.
Oh, okay.
He might do it on his own. Who knows?
Okay, who knows?
More power to him.
We'll let you know. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. There's plenty of places to find out. Okay, it may be a shorter show today because there wasn't a ton of news. It's been quiet. The Activision Blizzard Microsoft stuff happened, and then things have been
cooled off.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, sorry, just to go off track a little bit. You mentioned, is it still called Twitter? So the official former Twitter profile page, they can't change their handle from Twitter, so it's still at Twitter.
Oh, I did see that, yeah.
Also, Microsoft holds the copyright for X because of the Xbox and everything like that.
As a logo?
As a logo. And the X that he's using as the logo is the logo from a musician.
So I've seen a bunch of different stuff, because I did go on Twitter for a bit, because I was looking at, I always check different journalists and stuff to see stories. But I saw somebody say it was from a font package, but I don't know what the truth is. I saw somebody say it was from something from the early 90s. I don't know. I guess, if anything, it's not a very
popular one, but
it's not a very rare style of X, I guess, because there's a lot of different things I've seen where it's here it is again, and it's in some other place.
Yeah, but if I remember right, Xbox holds the copyright for X when it pertains to game distribution, but Meta owns a copyright for X on social media.
Why?
I don't know.
Care.
Or it's similar to an X. I don't know, but he needs to stop making decisions for companies.
Twitter should just go away. I think it's been a negative on society. So has TikTok. Everybody should just subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm kidding.
Now, you say TikTok's bad, but I've sent you a couple TikToks that you love, like that edit
Those
from...
are just videos, though.
That edit from The Phantom Menace, where they're going through the door. Oh, fuck!
Yeah, okay, that is a good one.
And the one I just showed you where the guy's holding a tape measure 6 feet away from the edge and I'm 6 feet from the edge.
I think it's Ford Edge. Anyway, okay, so I really haven't played much this week. Still working on the Splinter Cell video, chopping away at that. I went back and I played Double Agent version 1. I don't remember which version is which. I have to get it straight in my head. The 360 PS3 version.
Okay.
And now that I've played the version for the generation, the console generation before that, I think that version is much better than the one that came out for the 360. The one for the 360 is just, it doesn't have the same sort of gameplay depth. One thing I forgot about is that his vision or his visibility is binary. He can either be seen or can't, right? In other Splinter Cell games, there's a gradient, there's a meter, and depending on how close an enemy is to you and stuff like that, you can sort of, if you're not sure, you can walk slowly, and if that gradient starts to creep up, you can back off.
Yeah.
So you can sort of judge it like that. That's not the case with Double Agent. It's just green, you're no one can see you. Yellow, everybody can see you. And so you'll step into yellow light, and it's busted, all the bad guys see you suddenly.
Yeah.
And a lot of missions take place during the day, and it's just not fun. I don't know why it's like that. I don't know why they decided to go with that decision, but yeah, not a huge fan, but I'll break all that down anyway. So yeah, I don't have much more. I didn't really play much else. So the floor is yours.
I have been playing Darkwood.
Hey, okay.
Top-down survival horror game. It's a little light on the horror. It's more the horror more comes from fear of the unknown, because the game recommends you stay inside, lights on during night, and you just hear things happening outside. You hear creatures moving. You hear weird anomalies happening. Light has a unique mechanic to where if you have a light on in an area, you get a like a black and white view of that area while the light is on, and you could see when the terrain is interacted with, but you don't see what is going on. So occasionally there'll be something spooky happening out in the locations around you, and there'll be a light out there. See, like, it's a bit open when it comes to storytelling because there's not a lot going on. There was the game's broken down into day by day. You wake up the game starts at 8 a.m. The day starts at 8 a.m. and then ends at 8 a.m. the next day. But from 7:30 to 8 nighttime, it's dark. When all the creatures are out in force. So there's like two halves of gameplay. One, going out collecting resources, progressing the story. The other one, hiding. But you can. I jumped onto the Darkwood subreddit just to see if anyone had any tips or anything. But I did see people posting about they're surviving through the night of just running around avoiding creatures. So I was like, all right, so you don't even have to hide. You can just run all night, forever.
Yeah, I played Darkwood a little bit. It was one of the games I wanted to try out on the Steam Deck. The controller support didn't seem very good, so that was a pretty big turnoff. Because it's a top-down like survival game,
yes,
like a twin stick. So it's clearly a game that it's not like crazy. It's clearly a game that can work with a controller. But when I played it, and maybe I had to go back and tweak a lot of the controller settings, it just wasn't a good feeling game from the get-go. So that was a bit of a turn off. And I remember I thought the ambience was cool, and the whole creepy, mysterious forest thing was cool. One thing that I thought was interesting was I stayed in a house overnight, and I would push objects in front of doors.
Yeah.
And the monsters would come and like push the objects out of the way and try and break into my house, which was creepy. But I get maybe at the time I just wasn't in the mood, because it's one of those things where during the day you have to rush around to complete a bunch of tasks, and you have to, to keep those lights on, you have to find fuel to put in the generator to keep the generator running. So you have to go around and do all that stuff. And I just sort of lost interest. And combat may get better. I don't know. Like there may be guns or different weapons.
There are
or whatever.
You can craft guns, and then you can.
I'm sure it gets a lot better, but I just lost my interest. And maybe I'll go back one day and really sit down and mess with the controls. But I thought the ambience was really cool, and it's a very popular game. It's super popular. So I think it's maybe a game I just have to go back and give another shot to one day. I don't know. But okay.
I will say that the combat in it, especially melee combat, feels too clunky. Because you have to prime up an attack and then attack.
Oh yeah, you have to hold it and then release or whatever, right?
Well, I'm playing it on the PS5, and you have to hold left trigger, charge up the attack, then you have to hold right trigger to attack.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah, but some weapons have a secondary attack, like find a knife, tap right bumper, and it's just 3 quick stabs, but it doesn't like stagger enemies.
Okay. Yeah. I may go back to it one day. I don't know. I have to be in that mood where I want to play a game that is it is very unforgiving, running around, collecting things. It reminds me of Don't Starve, right?
Yeah.
It's very similar to Don't Starve. During the day, you run around, you collect stuff, you build a farm, I guess. I don't know. That's what you do in Don't Starve. And then at night, there's creatures that come out, so you have to be careful or whatever and develop your farm or your village or whatever. Okay. hit the ad. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server.
Frictional plans to cut back a bit. That's the phrase.
Hey!
On horror. During an interview with 80 Level, a developer type site.
Yeah, it kind of looked, I had never heard of it before, but it kind of looked like a gamedeveloper.com, which used to be Gamasutra.
Yeah.
Kind of looked like that type of website.
Frictional creative director Thomas Grip spoke about studio's culture and history. Also said, quote, horror games naturally are where emotions are front and center. Games really excel at this. It's not about the fear, it's about the holistic fantasy we deliver in each of our stories. Future projects, I think we will cut back a bit on horror aspects in order to give greater focus on other emotional qualities. I am confident that these games will still feel like Frictional ones. The immersion, the personal journey, and the holistic vision are what I see as the defining traits of Frictional games, not just horror as such.
Yeah, so whatever Frictional, this was a story I wanted to discuss a bit because I'm a fan of Frictional's stuff, and I've played all of their games except for one, because they released 3 Penumbra games. I played 2 of them. One of them was like a puzzle-centric one that didn't get very good reviews. I have it, but I never played it. Then there was obviously Amnesia, Dark Descent, which is a classic.
Machine for Pigs.
Machine for Pigs was not developed by them, it was published by them. I believe that game was made by the Chinese Room, which is the developer of Devotion, I think. I don't remember. But they made Soma, and then they did Amnesia Rebirth, and then Amnesia the Bunker. So I think Bunker was an interesting, really like eloquent, simple game that worked really well. It just wasn't new or innovative. It reminded me a lot of like the structure of Alien Isolation. And this is all stuff go watch the review I made of it. But if they decide to go away from horror, that's fine. That's cool. I'm sure they have a lot of other stuff. Soma told a really cool story, and it was like this creepy existential philosophical story. And a lot of the horror may not have needed to be there because a lot of the monsters were recycled tropes. So there was a monster you couldn't look at, or there were monsters that a lot of the monsters were like run and hide monsters, that type of thing, where you can only hide from them. So I think if they expanded on what Bunker did, that would be really cool. Bunker almost did something that I kind of wish that I've always wanted a run and hide horror game to do. And that is to give you a way to like fight back against the thing that's hunting you somehow. In Alien Isolation, you have the flamethrower, right? So the xenomorph catches you, you hit the xenomorph with the flamethrower or a Molotov cocktail, and it runs away. So you can sort of get it off you, swat it away, but it keeps hunting you. But I always thought it'd be cool if they ever made an Alien Isolation sequel where you find like a pulse rifle and you've got a couple rounds, and then maybe you can spend those rounds. It was when you can like lure a xenomorph and take it out, and then you like get rid of a xenomorph at some part of the level, right? So it's sort of a resource thing. So in a sense because in run and hide horror, the monsters that you're hiding from are powerful, and there's nothing you can do. Yeah. But in Amnesia the Bunker, you have a pistol. And in much the same way that you can shoo off the xenomorph with the flamethrower, the monster in the bunker, you can shoot the monster and it'll go away. It eventually comes back. But that's one of the ways where in a pinch, you can get the monster to run away from you.
Also get a shotgun in the bunker.
Yeah, you can get a shotgun too. Yeah, which does the same thing, just with a bigger punch. So I think it would be great. I thought Bunker was good. It worked extremely well, but it needed like more complexity. It needed other ideas, things that we haven't seen before, and it just wasn't that. It was, like I said, it was smooth. It worked. It was good. But it just wasn't necessarily original. I don't. Is there anything you would like to say about Frictional? I don't know how many of their games
I haven't
you've played.
I don't think I've played any of their games.
Really?
Yeah.
Not even The Dark Descent?
No, I've only watched Let's Plays of them.
No,
Never really had an interest of playing them. I considered playing the Bunker just because one.
Yeah, World War One's more of a backdrop.
Yeah.
But it does have some very, very creepy set pieces in it. I won't spoil anything, but and The Dark Descent is good, but today I don't know if I went back to it how much I would like it, because it was sort of interesting for its time, because a lot of the techniques they used in Dark Descent they also used in Penumbra, but they sort of really refined it, and then you had sort of the watch and scream phenomenon with like the YouTubers and Markiplier and PewDiePie and guys like that, and they sort of, I think, helped with the game's prominence, because that Penumbra was sort of this indie horror, right, which had a cult following, and that YouTube scene, I think, is what. This is totally off the top of my head. I don't know if this is accurate. I've always assumed it's accurate, but that YouTube scene is sort of what brought Dark Descent. Kind of brought it into the mainstream, as it were. And so a lot of those ideas for the time were awesome, but now they've been done a lot, and by other games as well. Games like Outlast did similar things.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they go away from horror, that good for them. I hope, obviously I'm a big fan of Frictional, and I'll probably play whatever game they make next. I'm glad with the direction they took with Bunker, because Rebirth was much more about spectacle and set pieces.
Yeah.
But it didn't work quite right. And Bunker was much more subdued in that context, but the gameplay was deeper, and it was much more of a survival horror game, while Amnesia Rebirth was much more of like a psychological horror / walking simulator type game. So they in that sense they did a big 180. So yeah, long way of saying I hope success for them. But hey, we've seen small studios sort of do big things in the past. Housemarque, they did a roguelike, but they did this like third person bullet hell type thing that they had never done before. So small studios can definitely
Colossal Order with City Skylines, reintroducing that genre, the Great Effect.
Oh, what did they do before that?
I don't remember, but I think that made first.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
don't quote me on that.
That was a heck of a first game.
Don't quote me on that, but I think that was their launch title.
That's always an interesting question that I don't know a whole lot about, is studios that have so much expertise and experience in a single genre. How does that how much does that affect the games that they make? How difficult is it to jump genres? Creative Assembly didn't make a lot of FPSs, and they made Alien Isolation, and it was phenomenal. But then you bring up a developer like BioWare, and BioWare makes RPGs, and they tried Anthem, and Anthem was really bad, and it didn't. And the reporting was that this isn't really what BioWare does. I'm not trying to make a judgment here. I just think it's an interesting question. It's one of those things. It's like, how difficult is it for a studio to transition from something they've done so well to something that's not necessarily something they've done before, and then what goes into that process? Maybe we'll talk to Mark Dara about it.
And I was incorrect. Their first game was Cities in Motion, which is a goal of the game is to implement and improve public transportation.
Sounds fun. Sounds like something we need in real life. Okay, moving on. UKIE has published, I think that's how you pronounce this, new guidelines for loot boxes. So from what I understand, UKIE, which is UKIE, is a somewhat similar organization to ESRB. I want to pull up what UKIE stands for.
The Association for United Kingdom Interactive Entertainment.
Thank you. So I think it's similar to ESRB, or not ESRB, the ESRB, duh.
Yeah.
I got it stuck in my head. I think it's similar to ESRB, but maybe not necessarily the same thing. In any case, among these guidelines for loot boxes are make available controls to restrict anyone under 18 from buying a loot box without parental consent or knowledge, clear probability disclosures, and I'm going to read straight from their guidelines, quote, making sure that players can easily access clear and simple information on the probability that they will receive given virtual items or categories of virtual items or other elements in a loot box before they acquire or open it. Players should also be informed if their data is used to influence gameplay experiences with paid loot boxes and given relevant details, end quote. Continue to tackle sale of items via third parties and commit to lenient refund policies when spending has occurred without parental consent or knowledge. All good stuff. We haven't talked about loot boxes in a while. A lot of these, I don't know. Do you remember at the beginning of this year, we talked about, what was it? We talked about people make games. We talked about people make games. They did a video on Counter-Strike skins and sort of the third-party Counter-Strike skin scene. Mm-hmm. And in there, they talked with a lawyer who talked about this system wherein, I forget what it was called, but it had to do with loot boxes, where it was like variable probabilities, right? Where if you had two players that were looking at spending money on a loot box, if one player never spent any money, they had a higher probability of getting a rarer item, as opposed to the person who regularly buys loot boxes. That probability goes down because you want that person to continuously spend.
First time's always free.
And the other person who never spends, you want to give them a reward to try and incentivize that recurrent spending.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they said players should also be informed if their data is used to influence gameplay experiences with paid loot boxes, because I think that's something that has happened.
Yeah.
I don't know on what levels. The lawyer didn't specify if it's ever actually been put in place or if any games actually use it or anything. But that is doing that is addressing exactly that issue, which I thought was interesting. What was the other thing? Oh, tackle the sale of items via third parties. Mm-hmm. I think we all agree that needs to happen. I don't necessarily know if companies really care about that, because it all flows back to them one way or another. Mm-hmm. Unless they would rather wrangle that market into their own ecosystem. I think that's probably the only other thing. And then the whole lenient refund policy, I think, is good too. But this is all from an organization that is not out to do the best for video games. It's, from what I can gather, an organization that's out to cover the best of.
It's a trade body.
Yeah, what's best for the
industry.
The industry, much like the ESRB or the ESA. That's what I was thinking of earlier. The ESA. The Entertainment Software Association, much like they are. So I'm sorry, rewind. UKIE is similar to the ESA, not ESRB. Maybe. I don't cut this all out from the record. I don't remember. I really don't. The point is their interests align with the interests of corporations, not with the art, the medium, the developers, or the actual players, right? Mm-hmm. So the guidelines that they put in place, while beneficial to those people, are ultimately there to cover the asses of the industry, first and foremost. Because if you really wanted to regulate loot boxes, you would get rid of them. But EA, FC, and Madden make way too much money for that, so you just can't get rid of them. But if you were really concerned with the problems that loot boxes presented, that's what you would do. You look like you wanted to say something.
I would just, because you say loot boxes just shouldn't be in games. Now, are you specifying paid loot boxes and not just like X amount of XP, you get a loot box, it opens up, blah, blah, blah. Just keep doing that while you play the game.
It's all about the context.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, I'm not saying, like, with cosmetics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with cosmetics that unlock that you have to grind to get.
Mm-hmm.
Everspace, you have to fly around, you have to find the cosmetics, you can't just buy them from a store.
Halo Reach.
Halo Reach, you had to play the game and get the XP and you'd unlock cosmetics. Now you could argue that the Halo Reach cosmetics items were there for an incentive, for what's the word I'm looking for? For a retention incentive, right? To keep people playing the game. Which, yes, but their connection to monetization was looser than just loot boxes or skins that you can buy, right? So my leeway with these kinds of systems is their proximity to monetization, to revenue streams, to monetization. Yeah. So if you have a game that gives you loot boxes and they're not paid, I'd have to see the game and play it to figure that out, right? But loot boxes are not if it's implemented because it's part of a gameplay loop or something like that, and the gameplay loop is there because that's the best thing for the game. That's one thing. If it's there because we want to draw a line between this and monetization, then that's where the problem occurs.
Let me create an example. Let's say that Halo Reach back in the day, when you leveled up, you got ammo drop, something whatever like that, and it gave you a random assortment of unlockable, it's like visor color, armor color, helmets, shoulders, anything that they all the cosmetics that they did, but it wasn't paid for, and it gave you just random shit.
I don't know. I'd have to play the game.
I'm saying Halo Reach.
Yeah, but I'd have to play that version of Halo Reach doesn't exist. I would have to play it, but it doesn't come across as something that's wrong. Do you know of a game that does that? I know there are games where you can get loot boxes for free. Like I think you could get loot boxes in like Overwatch. Yeah. But again, the loot box back in the day, the first Overwatch.
Yeah.
Loot boxes at Overwatch were there because of their connection to monetization. So while you could get them for free, it was more efficient to purchase them, and that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, so like. So when we're talking about this, it's always important to note that it's all about the proximity to monetization and retention, which are not gameplay, which is not a video game. That's just fucking gimmicks, and it's closer to gambling than it is playing a video game, than it is entertainment, art, craft, whatever, right? And that's where the problems arise. The other thing that I wanted to mention, but that we're not going to break down too much, is the ESA is asking to implement it. Facial recognition is not the correct term. There's a distinction, but it's similar to facial recognition, where it can, like a phone or a device, can look at somebody's face and tell what their age is by looking at their face. And then from there, it can allow or disallow them to purchase content or whatever. So that's like to protect minors from, and again, it's like, and if you read the ESA's, I think it's like a request to the FTC. If you read the request, it'll say this is private. The technology doesn't get transferred anywhere, and it's all numbers. There's no pictures taken of people. It's all just data stored somewhere that like measures your face and then cross-references that with the average like numbers of people at different age groups, and if you meet that a certain age group, you're either allowed to do something or not. And so they want to put this in to protect children from spending and stuff. I don't know. That's something that annoys me, because it's like, why can't we just, I don't know. So the better solution is to figure out a games industry where we don't have to implement this kind of technology, and we can monetize our games without having loot boxes where we have to implement or any kind of monetization.
So real quick, I want to say that I think this is one of the funniest mix-ups you've had, because you kept referencing the ESRB when talking about UKIE.
Yeah.
And ESA is labeled here, but it's actually the ESRB asking the FTC to approve facial recognition.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
What? Okay, we need to look up. Did I really?
Yeah, I looked it up. It's in that Axios article you posted. The Entertainment Software Ratings Board,
Dang
ESRB, asking the FTC to approve facial recognition tech for companies called Yodo if a game wants to make what you were just talking about. But it's the ESRB asking for that. But it's the ESA that is related to the UK.
Yeah, but they are related. ESRB. Yeah, okay. I looked up the Wikipedia because I knew there was some kind of relationship. The ESRB, just reading from Wikipedia, so this is great content. Fucking reading from Wikipedia. While the ESRB formally operates within the ESA, they operate independently. So they are, they're the Luftwaffe to the ESA's.
Oh,
I'm kidding. Hey, whoa, hey, whoa. I'm kidding.
God damn it.
So I knew there was like a relationship there, but okay, well, cool. Good for them, but not. Screw them. So we're at 30 minutes. I said it was going to be a short show. We don't have tidbits, unless you have a tidbit you want to. I like the sounder a lot. What if I told you, in this world, there are bits, and there are tids, and Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits. Okay, and unfortunately we don't get his, you get my voice, which is like, I don't know. It's this compared to Richard. Go listen to Richard's voice and be disappointed that you don't have tidbits. And then feel better about yourself for some reason. I don't know. Okay.
Better about yourself for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not good at improv, okay? I just read the news. That's all I do. Do you have anything else?
Do the cha-cha. No, I don't have anything else to say.
Okay. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. And we will see you next week. Bye.